Hey y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com, and today I have an art journal process video for you. I am super excited to play with some new stencils that I got from scrapbook.com, and I think they're going to be really fun to play with, and I'm going to try to use all three on a new art journal page. So if you are interested in seeing what I create, then stay tuned. This is definitely one of those art journal times where I was motivated by the supplies. I wanted to get a chance to use these stencils to see how I could put them together, and I wanted to use rainbow colors. I wanted to be very bright, very vibrant, and so we're going for it. So I have 4 colors of Distress Oxide, picked out a red, an orange, a yellow, a green, and a blue, and I'm starting out by just getting some color down on the page. I prescribe to the 6-block method, and I believe that I learned this from, I think, Dina Wakely, who says divide your page or wherever you're wanting color into 6 blocks, choose 3 colors, and then put the colors in non-adjacent blocks, if that makes sense. So I have yellow and blue, and then I will have blue and red red and yellow at going across. And you can see my blocks are kind of on 1 1/4 pages. And it's really just a matter of getting some color down on the page to start out with. I wanted to really emphasize the blending of the colors, bringing those colors together. So I'm going to kind of force that a little by choosing the orange and the green and the purple that should be coming out when those colors blend. I could have worked harder and made these actual colors as I was blending, but I thought, you know what, I'm just going to really emphasize it by bringing it in this way. And I'm using my rainbow stencil to do this. Now, this is what's called a masking stencil, which is opposite of a normal stencil, which means you're kind of filling in the negative space. Normally, when you put a stencil down, you're filling in the positive space or making the image come out. In this way, you're making the image come out by filling in the negative space. And I purposefully am not doing the whole stencil. I just want these rainbows to look as if they're coming out as the colors are mixing. I don't want it to be solid rainbow all the way across the colors. I want it to look as if the rainbows are just kind of a natural consequence of when these colors come together. And each time I'm changing colors, I am making sure to wash off my stencil, dry it, and then come back with the next color. And you can see, you start to see that very faint kind of texture of the rainbows coming through. And I love the feeling of them all kind of popping up out of the background, kind of emerging, if you will. So getting a really good start on that. I did drip some water on the paper because I got a little bit impatient when I was rinsing off my stencil, so I'm just using a little bit of ink to go over that. And now let's play with this larger stencil. For the larger stencil, I am actually going to use Distress Oxide spray. So we're going to do some tone on tone in that I'm pulling out, I'm going to use pixie spray to get it all in place so it will stay in place. And then I'm going to pull out Distress Oxide spray in those same 3 primary colors. So we have the red and the yellow coming through, the yellow again, and then blue up here and there. And look at how satisfying it is to pull that up. Ta-da! You're seeing some really cool things, but so I don't waste any ink, I'm going to flip it over and press it down because there was just some Distress Oxide spray that was kind of hanging out right there. I'm going to use my Bray tool to push that ink onto the page, and now it has this beautiful kind of crisscross that's going across the whole double page spread, which is fun. Now let's pull out that rainbow stencil again. This time we're going to play again. We're doing positive and negative space. We have this kind of feeling of this rainbow washing over, and I'm going to emphasize that by adding the stenciling on the left side where there's a lot more white space. So I do have to like rinse off the stencil in between, but we're using all the colors of ink over here, bringing out the greens and the yellows, the blues, the purples, bringing it all to the forefront right here. I like how kind of uneven the page looks, where it feels this heaviness over on the right side. We'll kind of change that up ever so slightly as we continue to add layers and layers, but it's fun just to see how you can make these stencils work together. I like the feeling that some of them are kind of in the background, the layering effect. It is fun to play with. So far I have used all Distress Oxide products, which means they are going to react with water. So I am using just a big paintbrush and clean water and making kind of this rainbow arch look that's coming across the page. And as it comes across the page, you can see it starting to react with the pigment underneath. Once it dries, it's this very subtle kind of swoosh look, which is giving me a rainbow feel, which is of course one of the things I'm bringing up throughout this kind of art journal entry. Now, this is the last stencil that I wanted to play with today, and it is the star stencil. It's kind of like a star, a shooting star kind of look, and I am using white gesso through the stencil. Now, anytime you add any liquid on top of Distress Oxide, it's going to react. So these stars aren't going to be stark white. They will have a little bit of color to them as the ink underneath them reacts. However, in my opinion, heavy white gesso is the most effective medium for adding white on top of Distress Oxides. So it'll have a little bit more of an opaqueness, a heaviness than if I had used just white acrylic paint through here. Or if I had used just a paint pen, it would have taken lots of layers and it still would have kind of faded into some of the colors. So for me, white heavy gesso is one of the most effective ways to put white on top of the Distress Oxide. All right, so you can see I'm drying in between. I'm turning the stencil and I'm basically trying to fill in that rainbow that I created with just the clean water. I'm filling it in with the stars as if they are coming through the rainbow. I'm ending the stencil, like I'm not doing a full stencil each time because I want it to end within the parameters that I set with that water. Filling this all in and just being really careful not to smush the parts that I had already done. You can see trying to dry, want to make sure it's all dry before I add one last star. And now it looks like this kind of, I don't know, a galaxy, like a tunnel of shooting stars. It was fun to just play with shapes and colors. You don't always have to have like a crazy purpose. All right, I let that dry pretty well. Now I am coming with a white paint pen just to add a little bit more definition to this shooting star line that I have going on. So we're going to bring that around. Now you can really see it coming together. A little more emphasis up here. And then to change it up a little more, to add some contrast, to add some extra interest, I'm actually going to come back with some black Sharpies. I have really been enjoying kind of doodling on top of things that I've already done. It's kind of just a little bit of a face. So I'm just going to add some wavy lines, a little bit of a pattern that goes down this arched rainbow right here. So we'll add that and I'm going to emphasize it, go over it a couple times just to make sure the black is pretty thick. The pages are very saturated with the color. It's not bleeding through because of the thickness of this art journal paper, this mixed media paper, but it is a little bit tricky to be writing on top of it just because I haven't let it dry all the way through. Truthfully, when you're using this much ink and stuff, it'd probably be best to like leave it out for several hours, but I'm generally not a patient person and I want to work on my art journal entry all at once. So I use my heat tool, I dry it as best I can, and then I just kind of go with the flow and see what happens. We're going to emphasize some of the stars right there. I love how it comes together. I debated on whether I needed to go and add any words, but I did decide to come back and add the phrase, "The beauty is found when we come together," which I thought was just a wonderful message. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I will link all of the supplies that I used down in the description box below, so feel free to check those out as well. I want to give a huge shout out to all of my Patreon members. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for all of your support. If you want to find out more about Patreon and how you can use it to support your favorite content creators, then check out the link in the description box below. All right, I hope that you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.